Hello and welcome, everybody. It's so good to see all of you again. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name's Maria Marquis. I will be one of your hosts today in this series that we're doing here at Coda called Maker Stories, which is all about sitting down with Coda makers, learning about their docs, learning about how they build and their process, and also just having a good old-fashioned chat. So for those of you who haven't attended one of these before, just a little bit of housekeeping. Over on the right side of the screen, we've got a chat area. Feel free to post whatever's on your mind there. That's your free space. But if you have a question, I would ask that you just click on the Ask a Question button below Karin and my beautiful faces. That's going to be a great way we don't lose anything that's on your mind. You can also upvote and downvote questions as well. So we always make sure we're answering the most important things for you. So without further ado, Karin, do you want to introduce yourself to our group today?
Yeah, my name is Karin Rogers. I'm an English speaker in a French-speaking country. Well, I shouldn't say English speaker. I'm a bilingual speaker in a French-speaking country. I live in Switzerland. I was born into a family with an English-speaking father. I can't say he was English because he would he would probably come back and haunt me for the rest of my day. Exactly. He was actually from Scotland. So there you go. And we just happened to grow up in Switzerland because my dad got a job with CERN. So that's how we ended up here. And I just decided to stay because it's quite nice here.
Yeah, and you want to tell us a little bit about what you do in your profession as a trainer?
Yeah, I'm a trainer. I teach people how to use their computers. I try to make sure that they're as comfortable as they can with the technology,
Mhm.
as comfortable as we can make them, because sometimes the technology doesn't cooperate, as we all know, but we try and help it.
Yeah.
And I've been training people for probably close to 25 years now. So
Mhm.
very much a way of life.
Yeah, totally. I know Karin and I were nerding out before all of you joined in around like trainer things and like, oh, when you're teaching on Zoom and when you're doing this and that and all of that good stuff.
Yeah, that's been a whole new experience. Teaching
Mhm.
online is completely different, but
Yes.
quite good fun.
Mhm. Yeah, I also enjoy it quite a bit. Mhm.
And other than that, I've been teaching on Skillshare for about probably about 2.5 years now.
Mhm.
And so that's kind of different because you've got to make videos, and basically I'm a one-woman operation. So I'm filming, I'm taking the audio, I'm then editing. I'm also doing the acting part where I'm, saying this is what you do and this is how you do it,
Uh-huh.
and then editing the whole thing, which takes ages because I'm not a professional editor,
Mm.
and then posting it online and hoping that people will like the class.
Yeah. Well, it definitely sounds to me like you are a superwoman if you're doing all of those things. And clearly, I need to have whatever coffee you drink in the morning because I could use some of those superpowers. So, the doc that we're going to be looking at today, everybody, I'm just going to snag the link here and put it into chat. So, if you'd like to follow along or get your own copy of it, is right over here, which is Karin's Skillshare Teachers Earnings Tracker. So, Karin, before we take a look at the doc, just love to know kind of before you started using Coda to manage this part of your independent business,
Mhm.
what did it look like? How were you doing it before? What tools were you using? What did this whole setup look like?
I basically had a very basic Excel table,
Mhm.
which I hadn't really built up much because I hadn't really felt the need so far. I actually built my Coda document at the relative beginning of my Skillshare adventure.
Oh, cool.
So I just had a very basic Excel table. And it just so happens that Al Chen was teaching on Skillshare as well, and he was teaching a
Mhm.
Coda class, which was cleverly disguised because he called it Going Beyond Excel. And when I see anything Excel, my eyes light up like a Christmas tree. I'm like,
Ooh.
ooh, Excel. I love Excel. I'll get myself a piece of that. And
Uh-huh.
so I accidentally came into this Coda class thinking, ooh, that sounds really promising.
Mhm.
Like a whole completely new concept. And I really liked the way that he was presenting it. And I thought, okay, I'll just go ahead and create something with Coda. So he was kind of guiding us to do a document.
Yeah.
And I thought, yeah, I don't really want to do, I mean, lovable as Al is, I just didn't want to do his document. I wanted to do something that was useful for me.
Yeah.
And so I decided to set up this particular document. And then I shared it with him, and he thought it was quite good. So that's how the whole thing came around.
I love it. And if you think about like your job as a, like you said, a one-woman shop where you do all the things. You've got Skillshare, you've got all of your other practice that you're doing, and you're really just hustling to make it work for yourself. What
Yeah.
are some of the problems that you needed this doc to solve for you as you were starting this Skillshare adventure? What were the problems that you had?
I can't say I really had any problems at the
Mhm.
time, but I was interested in seeing this was a whole new venture I was going into,
Yeah.
which was training online, and I wanted to see what the metrics were, like how many people were going to be visiting my page. Of the people who were visiting my page, how much were actually clicking on the link and following the class?
Mhm.
Of those, how many good reviews I got, or how many reviews altogether. There aren't actually that many reviews, and I'm trying to push people when they follow the Skillshare class to actually click on review, because it's a great help to us. It's feedback.
For sure.
It's basically the only feedback we get.
Mhm.
Unlike when you're teaching on Zoom, where you've got, the person's face, that is quite a lot of feedback in some cases. Yeah, exactly. And you think, oops, I'm not doing something right. On Skillshare, you don't have that.
Yeah.
So it's always good to know.
Mhm.
And so that was basically just trying to keep up with the metrics and see what was happening, and
Yeah.
why it was happening at certain points.
Mhm. Awesome. Excellent. So let's go ahead and take a look at the doc. Now, for everybody who's here with us, Karen and I are going to do something a little bit different than what we've done in previous Maker Stories. So what we're going to do first is we're going to take a look at the initial Skillshare Earnings Tracker doc that Karen published to our gallery that you can go ahead and grab a copy of over there, posted the link on the right. But we're also then going to take a look at Karen's living Skillshare doc that she uses right now to see how the doc has changed over time, and also to get a look at kind of how she's developed it beyond just that initial take. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So you should see it in a moment. Karen, if you could just do me a favor, let me know when you can see it, just so I know that we have everything we need here to get started. Fabulous. So here we are on that home page. And in this case, Karen, this is really mostly just instructions, yeah, about
Yeah,
how to get
absolutely.
going.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Cool. So for those of you who are going to be snagging this amazing doc from Karen, this will be a great place to just get a quick recap of everything that's going on, how to use the doc to refresh your memory. But let's go ahead to the first area, which is the summary stats page. So Karen, want to walk us through what's going on here?
So on this particular page, you can decide on which class you want to look at more
Mhm.
specifically, one or several classes that you want to look at.
Mhm.
And then you can select dates that you want to be looking at, whether it's past, present, everything, or a certain range
Mhm.
of dates. And it will give you the premium minutes, which are the minutes you're getting paid for in Skillshare, because
Ah.
some people get free minutes, and the free minutes are not being paid to the teachers. The
Mm.
premium minutes are. So that's what we're trying to. That's going to be the difference. Actually, there's a discrepancy on that particular one, because I look at the total minutes and they're actually lower than the premium minutes. It's normally the other way around,
Yep.
because your total minutes will include all the free minutes.
Mhm.
And then it will give you your earnings and what we call the EPPM, which is the earnings per premium minute.
Mm.
You're getting paid by the minute.
Got it.
And so there's a comparison with the EPPM that we get off of a Facebook group, where we all are the Skillshare teachers kind of share, the stories and
Yeah.
chat about the business.
I love that because it kind of reminds me of like in marketing, like the cost per click, right?
Mhm.
What is the actual ROI of the piece that we're putting out there? Because there might
Right.
be, oh, I didn't realize that this topic actually is much more lucrative because of the amount of time people spend, or
Mhm.
whatever that might be. Fascinating.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm learning so much as well here as well. Nice. And
And
then
then there's a couple graphs below
yeah.
that with the earnings per minute.
Mhm. And I'm
And
assuming
then
this is
below
just a
that,
view of this table here,
it's
yeah?
exactly, yeah, that's
Mhm.
exactly what it is. Just
Got
a
it.
view of that. And then below that, there is the premium minutes and the number of students.
Mhm. Got it.
Now, that's the only area where I miss Excel, is that on Excel, I've actually got that. Well, not this particular one, because I don't follow my Skillshare metrics on Excel anymore,
Mhm.
because that would be pointless. But what I would enjoy in this case, and maybe Maria, you could pass the message up
You
to
got it.
the powers that be in
Mhm.
Coda,
Mhm.
is being able to have a double axis
Mm.
chart, where you can have two different axes with two different levels of entry, because in this case the number of students is obviously going to be a lot lower than the number of minutes,
Sure.
And so basically that graph of the number of students doesn't really mean anything because it doesn't really show up on the graph. It's basically a flat line.
Yeah, I love that idea of a double access graph. I could personally use that a lot for myself too. So yeah,
There
I'll
you
just
go.
go ahead. I'll just text Shashir. We'll get that done by the end of the week.
Thank you.
No, that's a great future request. I will definitely pass it along. Not a problem at all. Got it. So then like this one table here really seems to just power this entire page that we're looking at. And
Absolutely.
also, I do just want to highlight one thing that I think Karen's done here that I find to be just a really powerful pattern is this idea of filtering your tables based on a control. You know, you can make a lot of different views of your data to see it in different ways and have them on different pages if you like. But I personally find if you're going to be dealing with the same kind of data set over and over again, creating kind of a dashboard here where you've got this filter off of a control ends up allowing you to have any number of views at any given time without having a bunch of different pages. So it's really a personal preference thing. But I find that for me, if I'm going to be investigating or asking my data questions, the controls really help a lot. And if you want to go ahead and add those, you just right click on the column here. There'll be an option to filter, and you can choose to filter by an interactive control, and it'll make a new one for you, brand new right off the bat. You used to have to go through a bunch of formula work. You don't have to do it anymore. So just a note here. Oh my gosh, I know I was going back and looking at previous videos of how to do filtering off of controls. I was like, man, that used to take a long time, and now you just click.
At the very beginning, I had a few questions for Al. It was going back and forth, and I was emailing him saying, I'm trying to do this, and it's not working. Help! And he would send me back a thing saying, okay, this is how you do it. And it was a lot more complex.
Totally.
And thankfully, that has evolved quite a bit.
It's a day and night for sure. So great. So now we got this class summaries area. And here we go. We've got a subpage for class 1. I'm assuming you could have as many subpages as you liked based on which classes you were looking at. So let's take a look at the class 1 summary here. All right. So Karin, what's going on here? Walk us through.
So what you see there is basically for one class. In this case, the choice was to enter daily stats, but you could enter them daily, you could enter them weekly, you could enter them monthly. At the very beginning, I used to do it daily because I was all excited, and every morning I'd go in and anxiously await my stats and, to see what had happened the previous day. With time, I've gotten a bit more blasé about it, and I'll just do it once a month just to make sure that things are still on track and everything's going good. And that's generally speaking what I do now. So in this case, it's just basically the number of people who have gone to my page or gone to the page, and then the people who have actually become a student, and then the premium minutes and the total minutes.
Got it. Nice.
Which then calculates your earnings per day according to the EPPM.
Yeah, perfect. And yeah, this is just a formula then over here. Got it. Cool. Yeah. Nice. And I could see this being really fun to do in a graph view as well, to see like the people and the changes and all of that, if you wanted to have a visualization there. Cool. Yeah. Nice. Excellent. And I would assume this would be, as I'm not a Skillshare teacher myself, but I am a trainer. I do think that this would be a way to know, like, how am I tracking over time, right? Like having a monthly revenue goal, trying to hit it, making sure that you're seeing it, noticing if there are any dramatic dips or drops or increases to be able to understand, like, how am I really putting myself out there? Got it.
Yeah, the only problem is that then there's not much you can actually do about it from a Skillshare point of view, because you can't control what comes up in the searches, which level you come up in the searches. So it's basically hit and miss. But the ratio of about 1 student for every 10 visits seems to be relatively uniform over the different types of classes. For discussing it with other Skillshare teachers, it seems to be what they're getting as well. So whether your class is a technical class or whether it's an artsy class doesn't seem to really matter. It seems to be kind of a 1 to 10 ratio.
Interesting. That's really cool. And I could also see, like, all right, if I know that I need 10 visitors, do I want to run an ad, or do I want to join some communities and post things there? Like, how do I get that magic number of 10?
Traffic,
Cool. Excellent. So then we have more. So this is, I guess, all of the data business back here.
Exactly. Yeah, that's all the back the back office of the document.
Yeah. So do you want to just walk us through what each of these subpages are? The detail. Then we'll take a look at them. But just give us kind of the heads up here.
Yeah, the detailed stats is basically going to be where you enter your numbers. The earnings is going to be just driven from the earnings page from Skillshare. It's basically just a copy and paste of the earnings, which is then going to drive the calculation of the earnings per minute. The classes is the place where you're going to enter all the new classes that you create, and then it allows to select those classes from drop-down lists and all the different other pages. And the other data, I actually can't remember off the top of my head, so you're going to have to click on it.
Let's go ahead and click in there.
On it.
Nice. Here we go.
Oh, it's a graph.
Oh, so then this is this sort of a summary from the group then?
Yeah, that seems to be the summary from the Facebook group. Yeah.
Got it. So I like how you're talking about there is a big community of Skillshare teachers and everyone kind of is understanding the metrics together. Like, that 10 is the magic number. And how are we tracking like what is normal for EPPM? So you can know, am I like ahead of time or behind time and things like that.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. So we got lots of EP. So this is just the table that's powering that graph. Let's go ahead and give you some stuff here. Let's say it's 7 per
Oh,
EPPM.
please. Oh, that would be so good.
Right? Wouldn't that be nice? Here we go. We got a nice big spike. Beautiful.
Yep.
Cool.
Thank you, Maria.
Of course. Yeah, I'm here for you. Yeah. So let's take a look at the enter details stats area. So how does this work? It looks like you've got a button here that's adding where you could just submit stats for the day. Like you were saying, like, I want to very, happily enter it in day by day for each class.
Yeah, in that case, what you do is basically just enter your visitors, your students, your minutes, and then click on the drop-down list to select what class this is for.
I'm just playing here.
Yeah, it's fairly basic, fairly easy to fill in.
Illustration for beginners. Sounds good.
And then whatever notes you have, like on such and such a day I ran an ad or that kind of thing, so you can actually keep track of do your do your metrics go up at any point because you ran an ad or anything.
Yeah, love that.
Any marketing plans that you're applying can be documented in your notes.
Yeah, being able to understand, did that thing that I tried work or not?
Right.
Right.
Yes, I've been finding a lot of or not. I found that it seems to be driven by totally random things, and I'm not really sure what drives it. So I've kind of stopped to, torture myself too much about what works and what doesn't work, and just putting classes out there and hoping that people will respond to them.
Yeah. Well, and it's also one of those things, like, I think it is always valuable to know the things that don't work too. Like, great, that's something I don't need to put my money towards, right?
Absolutely.
And you're like, okay, clearly my number of visitors is staying about the same. So I don't need to do that thing that I thought was going to be like the magic bullet.
Exactly.
So these daily stats, how is this connected to that summary area?
Well, that's the great thing about Coda, is that what you're looking at is a table of data, and that table of data can be sorted, can be analyzed any which way you want, put onto different pages, and everything is automatic. You put it on one page, and then you move to the other page without saving, without doing anything else, and it's automatically updated in the other page, which is what I found absolutely fantastic about Coda over a document like Excel, where in Excel, if you put something on one tab, I mean, if you've built it properly, you may have a chance that it updates your other tabs, but very often you're going to put it in one tab, forget to put it on the other, and then your stats are going to get all out of sync. So that's what I absolutely love about Coda, is you basically put it in one place, and then in this case, it's a detailed table. In the other, like on the summary stats page, it's going to be summaries, but it's basically going to show the exact same figures. Magic. Nothing to do. You just click on the button and it's magically updated.
I love a little bit of magic. Yeah. Got it. So this whole table is really that summary view of that daily stats. So it's for this month, show me all of the totals for that month that's coming from that daily stats.
From that daily stats, exactly.
Gotcha. Awesome. Very cool. Yeah. And I think this is another really valuable pattern, folks who are joining us today, which is knowing that if you've got this need to summarize, like, I've got all this data, but I just want to know, the number of tasks by person, or the number of earnings by month, or the number of pizzas per child. Yeah, I don't know. I'm pulling things out. You can actually use a formula, which is using this row in your formula to summarize based on that other table. So as long as you've got these connected with a lookup, which in this case be your month or all of that, you're able to move that through and really have that summary be super helpful. So that's something that I use all the time. Doc over doc over doc is this summary thing that Karin has built. Nice. So let's take a look at your classes. So this looks like just a simple place to just include all of the classes so that you can pull them in wherever you wanted to.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, and we see those in that detailed stats area right here. The class is pulling directly from that table. Gotcha.
Exactly. Yeah.
Excellent. And the other thing that I like is that you could add more columns here to this table if you wanted to, like to include more details about it, link to the Skillshare. Nice. Cool. All right, so then earnings, the most important part. So this is, walk us through what's going on here, Karin.
So if you scroll down a tiny little bit, the first bit is just basically a screenshot of the Skillshare part. And in this part, you basically just pull out the month, well, it's basically just a copy and paste from the Skillshare page, the month, the date it was paid, how much you earned, and that is divided into two different payments, which are royalties and premium referrals. So if you refer anybody, you get paid extra for it.
Nice.
But basically that needs to be taken out of your earnings to be calculating your earnings per minute, because that's obviously on top and beyond of your minutes.
Right. Gotcha. So then this, and this is just, for any CSV or any Excel sheet or any Google spreadsheet that you got, you just copy and paste in, and then you can start to work with it. Roger that. Got it. Nice. Cool. And then the last bit is that other data portion where we saw the kind of communal details here.
Yeah.
So any other notes around this templated version before we take a look at what the real deal looks like that you're using on a daily basis right now? Any other things for folks to be aware of?
No, I think it's fairly straightforward, and also the great thing about these Coda templates is that you basically copy them onto your own Coda account, and then you're free to do whatever you want with them. So if you don't like it, you basically change it. If something doesn't look good or it doesn't look the way you want it, you wipe it and start again, and it's basically just kind of a frame to work from or to be inspired by, and then you can just make it your own and do whatever you want with it.
Yeah. And I would say, not only can you all people who are not Karin do whatever you want with it, Karin's also done whatever she wants with it by making some changes and all of that.
Absolutely.
Also, just a reminder, folks, you can post a question at any time. You don't have to wait for Karin and me to stop talking. We could talk, I'm sure, for hours. So
seems that way, doesn't it?
we are, after all, as trainers, we are paid to talk. That's what we do. So Karin, do you want to share your screen so we can see the active live doc? That's the sort of the real one that you're using on your day-to-day basis right now.
The real deal.
Yes.
We're getting lost here again. This is what I want. You would think I don't do this for a living.
There we go.
Okay, tell me when you see
we have arrived. Beautiful.
Right,
Looks great.
So I've changed it a little bit. I've got my monthly data is over here, and I've actually changed it because I know I won't enter it on a daily basis anymore. So I just called it enter monthly data. Where same thing, basically the date, the class, the visitors, the students, it's the same metrics. Nothing has changed in that respect. It's just I've kind of moved it around a little bit.
Yeah, and I love that you just sort of notice something about yourself, like, you know what, I'm not going to enter this stuff daily. So I'm just going to make it, for me, I'm going to enter it monthly. That makes sense for me. So I'll just change the sort of cadence of when I do that. Yeah.
That's correct. At the beginning, you're all really excited and it's like, oh yeah, I'll do it daily. And then it's like, oh, come on, not going to check Skillshare today. No point. Then I've got my detailed view information, which is basically the same one that we were looking at, which basically shows me all my, all the, all of the classes over the, the different periods. That was when I was still entering the data on a daily basis. And then down here when I'm entering it on a monthly basis. But as you can see, the table has grown quite considerably.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem to be a problem for Coda yet. So I don't know. There might be a limit of number of lines. I've got no idea, but I haven't come across it yet. And so, as you can see, it's not actually Photoshop I do, it's mostly Excel stuff,
Yep.
which is, the thing I get excited about.
Nothing like
And
structured data to get like to put a little spring in your step, you know?
absolutely. It's quite funny because when I go out with my friends and anytime there's any question about any decision, it's like, oh, well, Karin will make up an Excel spreadsheet with it. So
Yes,
not sure if
we've
it's a
all been that
compliment,
person. Mhm. But I'll take it, you know?
Then I've got my 2020 summary of classes, which is basically just
Mhm.
the detail for this particular year, where I've
Yeah.
got it collapsed by month.
Mhm. Oh, so you just did
And
grouping there. Nice.
yeah,
Cool.
basically that's all I did. I just did grouping and collapsed it. And so I've got, kind of easy summary to go in and look at. And then I've got a similar thing, with the selector where you can select the
Mhm.
year, you can select the month, and you can select the type of class that you want, and it'll give you
Mhm.
details for that particular one.
Nice. My favorite pattern.
And then very recently, like about 2 weeks ago, I decided to hide away the previous years in a section that I called previous years. And what I
Mhm.
really like about Coda is when you create a new section and that you put new documents under it, when you click on the actual section document, it will give you links to your sub-documents. And you
Yeah.
don't have to do anything. It's just automatic, which I find absolutely fabulous. It's really great.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, and my other thing I love about this, because 'cause I'm the same way, I was like, "Oh, this is such a magical thing," is that
Mhm.
you can also change the size of the links if you want to.
Right. Yeah,
So, like, right now, it's, like, a little bit smaller so that if
the
people like
smaller
a
one. Yeah.
really, like, clean view, or you can, like, make them medium size or big. I think, like, the big we use that a lot when we want it to look kind of app-like, but I love that it just allows you to decide, like, what looks good to me and being
Yeah.
able to make those changes and just having it automatically there. Yeah,
Yeah.
awesome.
So that's my previous years. Then I've got the class links where
Mhm,
I've actually got a little bit more detail for one class. So it's
mhm.
basically just the name of the class, the date it was published, and then all the metrics for that particular class.
Mhm,
And last but not least, my settings portion, which is where we'll find the same thing that we had on the other document, the EPPM, the
yeah,
classes, the monthly. What I did recently, also, well, relatively recently, was added this little calculator thing where I basically enter the month, the number of minutes watched, what I got paid, and then it will automatically calculate the EPPM.
cool.
So that's quite convenient because it avoids you entering the figures in the wrong order in your calculator and coming up with weird numbers and thinking, no, that doesn't look right, does it?
Yeah, yeah, and just doing I think in this case, it's just a simple formula of, in the column of the
Yeah,
payment received divided by number of minutes. Again,
exactly.
a really easy pattern that everybody here can replicate across any
Yeah,
kind of doc that you're working with. Nice.
absolutely. And then the list of classes, which is the exact same one that
Mhm,
we saw on the published document. So that's basically what there is to it.
love it.
And yeah, I use that one regularly, and I really enjoy using it.
Mhm. So then if you think about kind of as you've been, playing with Coda and building this doc out and all of that, were there any surprises as you were going through that were like, oh, I didn't realize this was something, or things that were unexpected for you as you were building?
Um, well, considering I built it at the very beginning when I was just starting to use Coda, I was basically discovering as I went and
Yeah.
thinking, oh, well, yeah, maybe I can filter it, maybe I can do this. And so it wasn't really snags I came up against. It was mostly like interest and like, oh, this is a really cool feature that I'm going to be able
Yeah.
to use, and then just implementing it.
Mhm. Cool. And then were there any sort of iterations as you were going through building where you're like, oh, actually, I want to structure it this way? Or
Oh
any
yeah.
changes that you made? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Talk us through because
As you can see,
I love the
it has
building. Yeah.
evolved quite a lot.
Yeah. Excellent. And then if you think about, other people who are getting ready to start tracking something that's important to them
Mhm.
or adding a Coda doc to their business process, like you've done, what advice would you give them as they're getting started?
I'd say the first thing that you need to do is be quite structured in your head as to what you're trying to track,
Mm.
so that you can, kind of put it down on paper. Well, paper. When I say paper, I mean
Paper.
Coda. still use the old vocabulary, but I never use paper. Well, not a lot. So yeah, be very clear in your head as to what you're trying to track, and then maybe just build it step by step.
Mhm.
I always say that to my students when they're learning how to work in Excel, for example,
Mhm.
and even complex things. I'll say, and this is a very knowing example when you know me. If you go into a dancing class and the instructor says, "Okay, this is what we're going to do," and then starts launching into a 10-minute choreography, I personally will say, well, that was very nice. I was glad to meet you. Bye-bye, and walk out the room. Because I know that there's no way I'm ever going to be able to pull that off.
Mhm.
But if you cut it down into small portions, and if he says, okay, we're going to start by doing this, and he just does a side step, I'm like, okay, I can do a side step. And then I'll do the side step. And then he says, okay, now we're going to do 2 side steps. And that's little bites that you can manage. And you've got to view your process of building a document the same way. You're not going to make it perfect in one go, but what you're going to be able to do is cut it up into little slices, and every little slice is manageable. And then eventually it will build into your complete document.
Yeah.
So maybe don't be too ambitious at first, but just say, okay, I basically just need a table that's going to do blah. And then you set up your table and it does blah. And then you'll think, okay, maybe from this table, I can actually take something and build something else. And basically just view it as going upstairs and just, building your stairs one at a time.
I love that. Also, I kind of feel like I want to like start dancing now. Like,
Yeah, I don't.
that's all right. I'll
I still
dance.
don't.
You make Coda docs. We'll be
That's right.
good. Excellent. And then, I think the fact that you have a lot of Excel experience is really interesting too. Oh, and it looks like we've got a really good question here, which is, aside from copying and pasting your stats from Skillshare to Coda, are there any other stats or charts in the Your Teacher Stats page in Skillshare that you still like to use? So how do you think about using the Skillshare backend versus Coda? What does that look like for you?
Well, the thing with the Skillshare backend is that you're basically going to look at your stats, but they're rolling, so they're going to disappear fairly soon, which is why I wanted to keep track. So
Yeah.
what I do is I'll look at the Skillshare information as it is, and then I'll basically just take it and copy and paste it into my own document and keep track of it there, because there's a lot more data in there. So you're going to be able to compare, like, is a typical January got a certain pattern? Does it get slower in the summer or not? Are there days that work better than others
Yeah.
or not? And that's something that you don't really get out of the Skillshare interface, because you're only looking at a certain period and
Mhm.
it cuts off after a while.
Yeah, gotcha. Excellent. Yeah, and it's one of those things where, I find that something we see a lot with Coda users is they really like something that they're doing, but they wish it also did another thing. And so
Right.
like making that doc that fills in the gap. Love that. So with your Excel experience, I always like to hear for Excel people because, our very dear, lovely Al also still uses Excel for things, even though he's
Mhm.
a super, Coda user.
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear from you kind of how do you see the two different tools? Like when would you use one versus the other? What does that look like for you?
Well, I'll use Excel for files that are just files.
Mhm.
Let me explain. Um, if I've got a database and I want to analyze it and create a pivot table, I'll use Excel, because the pivot table is something that works really well, and that with a very large list of data is still going to be able to analyze your data in a
Mhm.
quite efficient way. When I start thinking about processes, on the other hand, so it's not just a document, but it's more of a process.
Mhm.
In that case, I'll go to Coda, because Coda will allow me to go through the process and to maybe have a timeline, to be able to project things, to be able to give things to other people to do. And
Mhm.
you can keep track of that in that same document. I mean, this particular one doesn't do it, but that is one of the possibilities that is really great with Coda, is that you can actually use it as a team document, not just for yourself. And so the minute it goes beyond a simple document and it becomes something like more of a process or more of a project, in that case, I'll try to go to Coda and
Mhm.
build something there.
Yeah, Got it. And then, the other thing, do have a lot of Excel users who come to Coda. What is one of the biggest differences in Coda as a builder, right? As something like any mind shifts that you had to do when you're making something in Coda versus Excel, and what were
The
maybe
the
the
formula
differences?
language is completely different.
Mhm.
So I mean, I've been an Excel, well, not Excel, but I've been a spreadsheet user for longer than I want to admit, because then people would know my age, and you don't ask a lady her age, do you? But no, I've been using spreadsheets for over 30 years, and probably about 25 of those have been with Excel. So
Mhm.
you can wake me up after a rough night, and I'm probably still capable of producing a fairly complex formula in Excel. I'm not at that level of skill yet with Coda.
Mhm.
So I've still got to think about my formulas, but I really enjoy it because, as you know, when you're a trainer, you give a lot of yourself, but you don't really. I'm not saying you don't get anything back. That's not
Mhm.
true. But you're giving a lot of your knowledge, and you're not really absorbing any knowledge. And sometimes I just feel like I need to absorb language, knowledge. So
Yeah.
the fact of having to think about things and having to challenge myself about, oh, how would I do this in Coda? Because I know how I would do it in Excel. How would I do it in Coda? That is actually quite satisfying because it gets my little
Yeah.
brain cogs working again.
And the formula language, what is like the biggest difference for you?
The fact that you're not referring to cells,
Mhm.
like
Sure.
sum B6 to C14 or whatever,
Mhm.
you're actually talking about table names, and you're talking about column names within the
Mhm.
tables. That's quite a different approach,
Yeah. Mhm.
but um, you get used to it, and it actually becomes quite natural after a
Mhm.
while.
Yeah, I love it. Awesome. So then, if you think about this doc,
Mhm.
what is like your favorite part of it? The part that you kind of get the most joy from, or the part that's most helpful for you?
Probably the 2020 summary is the
Mhm.
one I use the most,
Yeah.
because it basically brings up all the information I need in that just one place. So
Yeah.
I enjoy that. Oh, there's one I didn't show you, I don't think. It's the this one. I really like this one because it's got lots of
Ooh,
different colors, and I
so
like
pretty.
graphs. So there you
Yeah.
go. That's
Yeah.
the pretty one.
So this is then pulling the EPPM per
Yeah,
month. Oh yeah, this is the full
yeah.
cycle for
The full
the full
cycle.
year. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Lovely. Ooh, that is beautiful. I would just open this up just to like be happy just because it's colorful.
Exactly.
Helpful
And what
data
I
and
do
pretty.
now is I actually publish it on our Facebook Skillshare group, because someone else was doing it,
Mhm.
and the someone else left the group, so nobody was doing it anymore. And so I volunteered and decided that I would be posting the graph from now on. So I'm it. I post the monthly
Excellent.
graph of stats and show them all
Celebrity.
the pretty colors. Yeah, as my daughter always says, you're you're famous on Facebook. That doesn't count.
It counts for me, Karen. You're famous with me.
Exactly. Thank you, Maria.
Of course, of course. And then if you think about this doc, what would you like to add to it? Like, is there anything that you have in mind about like, oh, it might be interesting to add this here?
Not this particular document. I'm
Mhm.
working on a few others where I'm thinking, I'd really like to do this, and I'm not really sure how to go
Yeah.
about it. So there's
Mhm.
a few others I've got in the pipeline. This particular one, for the time being, I think is stable. I'm not working
Mhm.
on it at the moment.
Yeah,
So yeah, other than updating it,
for
obviously,
sure.
but it has reached its mature point, and I think
Mhm.
right now it's at the sweet point where I don't really need to work on it anymore.
Yeah. Well, and I think we find that with so many docs, right? Like in the early days, you're doing a lot of building, a lot of constructing. Then you have a stable period. Then you're like, oh, maybe I want to add these things. And you have kind of another
Exactly.
period of
Yeah.
generation, like we've seen here, and then we get to like another stable point.
Yeah.
Would you mind sharing any of the other Coda docs that you're working on? You don't need to share the screen, but I'd love to know what are
The
some of the other docs you're working on.
the one I'm working on at the moment, which I'm enjoying and which might get my creative sparks going again.
Ooh.
I've been finding a lull in my creativity for creating classes for Skillshare, and I thought
Mhm.
I really need something to get it going again, other than someone nagging at me saying, "Have you posted anything new on Skillshare?" Which, I get nagged a lot about. But anyhow, what I've done now is I've actually created a document where I'm tracking all the production process. So starting with the class idea, then I move on to deciding within that class what would be the lessons that I would want to give. Then scripting out the lessons, deciding, what's going to be part of this lesson, whatnot. And then breaking it into little bits. And then I've got a really cool list that I've made where you can tick mark when what you've done. Have I scripted it already? Have I filmed it? Have I edited it? Has it been put together? Has the audio been made for it? And I'm hoping that it will encourage me to actually produce something and go to the very end of the project. And it's got a timeline, which is really cool. So I really enjoyed setting that up and basically putting the timeline in. And it brings up all your little bars where what has to be done by when, or when you're hoping to get it done.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, finding there's something really lovely about a process, right? That a process can actually get your brain feeling creative. Like something that feels very left brain, a process can actually open up a lot of right brain creativity because it kind of makes it a fun game, or like, oh, and I'm here we go. And also I think just by showing progress, it can make you have more progress, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Nice. Excellent.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Let's see. So anything that you would like to plug, things that you're working on that you want to make sure everyone who's here with us knows about?
Well, hoping to post new Skillshare classes about, I've had quite a few requests for Google Sheets class, because a lot of people had said, oh, I'd love to take your class, but I don't have Excel and I don't really want to pay for it.
Sure.
And but I would like the capabilities of a spreadsheet. So I'm like, why not do something about Google Sheets? So that's going to be I see Al made a comment.
Like, please, I want to learn more. Yeah.
Yeah. So Google Sheets is probably going to be the next class that I'm going to be working on.
Nice.
Other than that, I'm working on a lot of stuff for my Microsoft Office certification, so that takes up a lot of my time at the moment. But
yes, if everyone could say a prayer for Karin's certification, give her some good vibes, that'd be great. Fantastic. Excellent. Any other sort of words of wisdom or things that you would recommend to the team here with us today before we close out and let you have your evening back?
Just get your fingers into Coda, because honestly, it's a great product, and it there's so many things that you can do with it. And it's really varied. I mean, I didn't realize even how varied it was until I started watching your webinars. And I mean, I saw one a few weeks back. I can't remember what his name was. The guy who made the song player, the music player.
Oh yeah, Phil's music player.
That is fantastic. I didn't even imagine you could go that far with Coda. So it's absolutely fantastic to see all the different brains working in all the different ways and creating all these fantastic tools. Because I mean, in Excel, basically, you're going to be creating mostly financial tables. I mean, you can track other things, but it is going to be mostly financial stuff. Whereas in Coda, it can be anything. And that's what I love about it. So just get your fingers in it and, bite off a little piece, make that little piece your own, and then bite off another little piece and just kind of keep building on it, because it's honestly a great tool to be using.
I love that. That makes me so happy. I'm so glad you enjoyed it, because when I saw Phil's doc too, I was like, what? Oh my gosh, that actually works really well. Okay. And I will say that right, that all of the brains that are part of our Coda users, it's just really incredible. So folks, if you want to get in touch with more of those brains, I think a great way to start is to head to our gallery. The doc gallery is a great way to just see all of the docs that have been built, including Karin's fabulous earnings tracker. So to just kind of be inspired by what people's brains are doing. And if you want to talk to those brains, if you just go to community.coda.io, that's our community area where you can post docs that you're working on. You can ask questions, you can share tips. It's also the great place to get kind of pre-announcements of all the things we're working on at Coda. So betas, if you want to be part of testing something, giving feedback. We always post launch information there so you can know hot off the presses what's going on. It's a great place to just stay connected to everybody. Fabulous. Well, Karin, thank you so much for all of your time today, for showing us your docs, for sharing your wisdom, and also just sharing a little bit of who you are. It's always a pleasure chatting with makers like you, and I really, really appreciate all your time today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
All right, enjoy your evening. Thanks for joining us,
Thank
everybody, and
you.
we'll see you next time.
Right.
Bye.